Okay, so I just finished reading volume 3 of The Question, and I know that I did a review of volume 2 last year sometime. But uh that was when I only had volume 2, and I now own volumes 1 through 4, and I feel like 3 is a good stopping point. Uh if you just want to get uh I want originally I wanted to do a review of each volume individually, and then I figured, well, I'm going through this pretty quickly. I might blur some stuff, so I'm just gonna do them all in one review. And I figured that 3 was a good stopping point, at least for a review standpoint. I don't know for a story standpoint, and I'll probably get to a review of Volume 4 at some point. First thing I want to talk about actually is the covers that they used for the trade paperbacks, which is it's probably a minor thing for most people, but for me at least, it's kind of confusing. For the first one, Zen and Violence, they used the title and the cover of the first issue, which I thought was awesome. It obviously has a very kind of pop art, kind of collage looking cover, and I think it looks really cool. But for the second volume, Poison Ground, they used the cover for issue 4, which I thought was weird because issue 4 is not in volume 2, it's in volume 1. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a damn good cover. It's really good. It's really creepy and ominous, and it's just a really good question cover. But wouldn't you want to use a cover from the actual book? I just don't understand that. Uh, Personally, from volume 2, I would either pick uh, issue 8, uh, the Mikado issue, because, well, it has the question is full kind of suit and hat get up, or which they use for the back cover, which I think is good. And or the cover for issue 12, which is what the volume's named after. So why not use that? Number 3 is even it's not really even more confusing. It's just kind of a complaint of mine is that they use the cover for I think it's issue 17. Yeah, it's issue 17, which I don't really understand. Well, the cover for issue 17 has nothing to really do with the actual story. It's just a small little minor detail of the actual issue. And there are so many other good covers in this volume. Like I would have personally used issue 15, which is the question falling off of the building, which is just awesome, or issue 18, which is Green Arrow and the question, because it would attract Green Arrow fans. I actually do own that issue. Issue 18, where Green Arrow shows up. It's a really good issue. There's some ads in it for actually comics that I would love to check out. Anyway, uh, barring the covers, which Volume 1 is a good cover, Volume 2 has a confusing cover, and Volume 3, I think they could have chosen a better cover for the trade. But other than that, I'm just gonna go through each trade and go through kind of story by story what I thought about them. Now, one is going to be kind of difficult because one kind of has through the first, uh, yeah, it covers the first 6 issues of the run of Dennis O'Neill's run on the question, and it kind of has it's broken up into kind of standalone, kind of like 2 issue little arcs, while also having a running story throughout it that kind of ties all 6 issues together. It starts off with the Zen and Violence story with the question getting shot in the head, which I thought was a really interesting thing to do, especially for a superhero book, to start off issue 1 with the main character being killed, and then the next day in the next issue he comes back and he's trained by Richard and he learns the way of the Zen and whatnot, which I thought was really interesting, and I thought that the way they wrapped up a year in 2 issues was kind of amusing. Just like he's apparently trained for a year in the mountains by Richard, but it's pretty much one splash page of panels, and that's about it, which I thought was kind of amusing. Because usually, if something happens for a year to the character, and it's like a major life-changing event in most comics, it will usually spend a lot of time on it. That alone could have been like a 6-issue arc. But no, Dennis O'Neil kind of puts it aside to do other stuff. You know, he has the Question come back, and he's dealing with Mayor Furman and Myra and whatnot, and he's kind of learning how to be a better hero. And the throwing the bomb out of a bus issue, it was kind of weak, a little bit. I liked it, but I felt like it could have been better. Especially the villains, the motivation just didn't seem that good. Just like they're paid by the mayor. Okay, that's their motivation. But the Question, looking back on his actions and being like, okay, that was a stupid move to throw the bomb out of the bus. I could have just taken the fuse out. It does really show that he is learning, so it is kind of a good start to the run. Let me just open this up here. I need to refresh my memory. What comes after that? After that is they have the whole crazy priest thing, which I thought was only cool in Hellsing. They have the crazy insane priest who thinks that he needs to like cleanse the world of all criminals by being a criminal. It's obviously a social issue, and I get that. But it might have been just the fact that I just saw Hellsing, and I've already seen a lot of stuff where they're just like, okay, the religious guys can be the bad guys too. It did seem kind of weak, but also very intriguing. Obviously, this was very new at the time to have a crazy priest character in a comic book. And the way the Question deals with him with his philosophy. And at the end, when Myra stabs him, and that's actually brought up in the next issue, where Myra feels remorse about stabbing the guy. The next one, Cityscape, was an amazing issue. Oh, I loved it so much. It was kind of Pulp Fiction-y in the sense that it kind of had 3 stories going on at the same time. One about a guy who attempts to rape a woman. One about a woman who's waiting at a bus stop. One about the Question, and one about the mayor. One about the Question and Detective O'Toole. And one about Myra. And at the end, they all kind of wrap up in a really sad, kind of tragic way. Oh, it's such a good story. I would recommend just picking up that issue. Issue 5, I think it is. I'm just checking. Yeah, it's issue 5. Issue 5 is an amazing issue. Just, if you can find issue 5 of the Dennis O'Neil Question run, just pick it up, because it's a great one-and-done story, while it also ties into the overarching story that the 6 issues carry into themselves. Number 6, which I think has one of the most interesting covers, and that would have been a cool cover for the trade. It's actually a really compelling villain story, and I have just like skimmed through Welcome to Oz, which is the 4th volume, and I know that this guy comes back, and I can't wait to read that, because this guy was really interesting, because he's introduced in issue 3, and he's one of the guys who's supposed to blow up the bus. He's the son of this giant mobster who beats him all the time, and he pours acid on his face at the beginning of the issue, and he kind of has bandages like Hush, which has convinced me that Jeff Loeb stole Hush's design from the Question. And the ending is just really tragic and really interesting. Like, he shoots his own dad, and he goes over and he rips the bandages off, and you just see this deformed face, and I thought that was really impactful. This is the beginning of the Question having really good one and done stories, which I wish would come back. There aren't really a lot of one shots, and Dennis O'Neil wrote really good one shots. I think it kind of evolves away from what he did when he was writing Green Lantern, Green Arrow. When during that, you would kind of have Green Arrow just kind of walk up and say, okay, this is the message that Dennis O'Neil is trying to get across with this issue. Where in this, it's more subtle and less directly said. It's more of an indirect message, which I like a lot more. Not to bash on Green Lantern, Green Arrow or anything. I think those issues are awesome. Green Arrow obviously being one of my favorite characters. But, it was the 70s, and you just did kind of have to bring out, this is what I'm trying to say about society. Because at that time, comics were mostly aimed at kids. And this is, like it says on the issue, suggested for mature readers. So it's a bit more deep. Moving on to volume 2, it has a lot of the one and dones. It opens up with one about this guy Volk. I don't really like this issue that much. I don't know what it is. I just don't like it. Like, it's kind of really fast paced, and I wish it could have been stretched out a little bit. But I do commend Dennis O'Neil for trying to put it into one issue, because I think that was really interesting. Issue 8. One second. Just making sure it actually is issue 8. Yeah, issue 8, the Mikado issue. Oh, this issue is awesome. It has one of my favorite quotes from the Question, where he is about to be injected with a lethal injection, and he's just arguing semantics and philosophy with the guy. And he's just like, I think the exact quote is, I actually have the book here. When I was 18, I hit a girlfriend. Broke her nose. When I was 20, I beat up a professor. Little man, 6 years old, had asthma. Later, got into fights. I was strong, tough, knew I'd win. I'm trying to change. I'm ashamed of those things. I don't do them anymore. Last January, I threw a bomb out of a school bus. Saved 25 kids. Then I kept an old woman from being mugged. Then I stopped a couple of punks from shooting a cop. Do I deserve to die? I'm not innocent. I just love that melodramatic little spiel that the Question gives, and it actually drives the villain to kill himself. He's just like, maybe he actually makes the villain question what he's been doing. The next 3-issue arc, oh my god, the next 3-issue arc is such a mindfuck. Like, it just takes your brain by the ear and just pounds it for a good 3 issues. It's just really, really strange. Just all this really weird stuff happens. Not to say that's bad. It's not bad at all. It has a good moral kind of question to it. But it's also really confusing. I don't know what it's about. I don't know. Like, it takes the Question from Hub City and puts him into Costa Rica. Which I don't understand it. It's just, it's confusing very much. Like, he's dressing up like a Cuban military officer at one point. And it's just really, really weird. And Tot becomes like Jesus at the end of the arc. It's strange, and I don't know. It's just really confusing. Issue 12 is a really good issue. Although Baby Gun might kind of step on some toes, because his whole thing is that he kind of acts mentally deficient throughout the entire thing and kind of mentally challenged. But I love the conversations that Myra and Vic have, and it's a good little kind of basic murder mystery kind of thing. And the whole thing about the poisoned lawns is interesting, but really the character stuff between Vic and Myra is what's really interesting about this issue. Volume 3, Epitaph for a Hero. Wow, these are really interesting. The first 2-issue arc, I love this. I love this first 2-issue arc. The second issue in this arc, the Question is buried up to the neck, so that only his head is sticking out of the ground. And he stays like that for the entire issue, and it's hilarious. It makes some great points about the army and politics, which Dennis O'Neil is really good at in this series. 15. The word nigger is repeated a lot. I mean a lot, because this guy's supposed to be a racist. And I thought the whole thing, like, he's supposed to be a racist detective who's just, like, he's investigating black guys who were murdered. And he's just like, well, that makes them good ones. He's a really freaking annoying character. He's a flat stock character that I don't like. And they ends up taking a bullet for Vic Sage. And he's just like, why do you take a bullet for me? And the whole issue is just lead up to a little blurb that the Question gives about life, and it is just kind of basic storytelling in that kind of sense. I hate to rag on Dennis O'Neil in this, but I just don't like this issue that much. The cover is awesome, but I don't like the issue. Issue 16 starts off the Butch and Sundance 3-issue arc, which ends with the Green Arrow crossover. Butch and Sundance were okay villains. I mean, Mikado was a good villain. The Hush guy was a good villain. I don't know his name. And Baby Gun was a good villain. But Butch and Sundance just kind of seemed stock and generic. Just a little bit. And just considering the amount of characters we've had based on movies or franchises of different things. You know, we have Scarecrow. We have Mad Hatter. Tweedledee and Tweedledum. We have a lot of things. You know, they're okay. And the real interesting stuff comes from the Question and what he does. And, of course, the Rorschach sucks issue, which is awesome. And the kind of bickering between Green Arrow and the Question. Overall, this 3-issue arc is okay. It really comes down to whether you like the character of the Question or not. Because if you don't like Vic Sage, you're not going to like the Question series. But if you do, you're going to love it, and love it hard. But I would highly recommend these 3 volumes. They're really good reads. They're really fast reads. I read them a day each. Actually, Zen and Violence took me 2 days, just because I was doing other stuff. That might be why my memory on it's a little blurry. Volume 2 is kind of the weakest one. And I feel like Volume 3 is really where he hit his stride. And he was really, where Dennis O'Neil was really getting into writing the Question and making it really good. And the issue where Green Arrow shows up was an awesome issue. Because I love Green Arrow and I love the Question. So having them in the same comic was astounding. It was so good. I would love to see a writer just take them and do kind of like a Green Lantern, Green Arrow thing where they just kind of go around and solve problems for people, because that would be awesome. I would love to see that. Or maybe, like, make another kind of, like, small superhero team where you have Question, Green Arrow, and then some other guys that people don't know. And maybe, like, even set in the 80s and have, like, Ted Kord, Blue Beetle. And that would be awesome, and everyone who's a fan of DC Comics would love that. They would just love that freaking series. But yeah, that's my review of Green Arrow. Sorry. That's my review of Dennis O'Neill's The Question, Volume 1 through 3. Leave a comment if you've read them. If you've read the volumes, let me know what you think about it. I'm perfectly happy to get into arguments over the writing and the characters, because that's what I'm good at. So, anyway, until next time, this is Alaska Talking, signing off.